Ladies and gentlemen, live yet again from the Lone Star Cajun Podcast studio. This is the Lone Star Cajun Podcast. Let's do it. Okay, we're back. We're back with a vengeance. We're in studio, live in living color. And we're here to deliver the best podcast on this side of Earth. I want to thank you for your continued support of the podcast, for tuning in always, and being a loyal fan and member. I know that this past quarantine time has been rough for all of us, and it's time to get back on the horse. It's time to get back to work and get after it again. So I'm glad to be back in this $500,000 studio. I want to start right out the gate by thanking our sponsors, Anchor, for hosting the podcast. Host your podcast on Anchor. It's a great platform to launch your own podcast, get new sponsorships, and get on a lot of platforms. That's Anchor. Thank you, Anchor, for sponsoring us. Also, please check out our website, LoneStarCajunPodcast.com. Link in the description as usual. There you can get our Anchor site. You can get to our Teespring page, which is our merchandise. Teespring/Lone Star Cajun Podcast. Link also in the description. And you can access all kind of fun things from our website. But that's our sponsors for today. And let's jump right into topic one. So topic one is this SpaceX NASA launch. So NASA is teaming up with the company SpaceX, which is talked about frequently on this podcast, I must say. I've noticed that. And they're partnering to put a few men, is what it is, in space. And this will be the first time in nearly a decade that Americans have launched and gone into orbit. So that's a really big milestone, because obviously NASA had the shuttle program, which was then stopped not long after. It's also going to be the first time that a private vehicle will take Americans to space. In other words, not a government-funded, directly, not NASA-built. This is a SpaceX vessel. It's called the Dragon capsule, and this thing looks really cool. If you haven't seen pictures of it, look up SpaceX Dragon capsule. You can find some good pictures of it. And also the spacesuits are really cool and futuristic. They look like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, is what I was saying. The suits are really, really, really cool. I'm looking at a picture of them right now as we speak. And really, really, really cool stuff. They were going to launch this past Wednesday, but they've gone ahead and decided to postpone the launch. There were some weather issues, so they have postponed the launch, and they're now moving the launch to tomorrow, which is Saturday. And I'm not sure. Let me see what time. I need to reconfirm that. I believe it's in the afternoon. Let's see. Around 11 o'clock, it will make its way to the launch pad and lift off around 2:22 Central Time and 3:22 p.m. Eastern Time. And if they don't go ahead and get it off at that time, they're going to have to move to Sunday, the launch. But really cool that SpaceX and NASA are partnering in this. I've always thought that space travel is something really, really neat, and I've mentioned that lots of times on this podcast. We talk about it all the time. And it's a really good partnership, and I'm really excited to see people in space, because I feel like my whole life I've kind of been, I haven't seen a lot of space stuff because the shuttle program has discontinued, and it's really, really cool to see people going back to space again. And it is the final frontier, and I'd like to get to Mars sooner than later. Elon, get us to Mars. But I just thought that launch was really, really neat, and it's something that you guys may want to look into, and you may want to check out. I think it's another really cool aspect of it, really quickly, that a private sector company, and there's multiple. Virgin is working on a rocket, SpaceX, and a lot of Amazon. All of these big tech companies are so massive, and they have the money that they can afford and build their own personal spacecrafts. Like, just imagine that. Like, Elon Musk has so much money that he can build his own spacecraft. Like that's like a Magneto type move, like a superhero type move, and that's really cool that these private companies are able to keep it going, because without them, who knows if NASA would have the funding to be able to put something like this together. So I think that's really awesome. And as we mentioned before in the podcast, the really cool thing is SpaceX is really working to move to the next generation of space travel, which involves a rocket system or a capsule that can be reused. That's a really, really key thing for the next era of space travel, to save some money and to be able to have reusable spacecraft. So that's going to be a really, really big deal. Okay, I think that about covers that. So around 3:30 in the afternoon if you're on Eastern time, 2:30 if you're on Central time. So go ahead and check that out Saturday. That's Saturday, May 30th. So go ahead and check that out. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and move on to our next topic. I thought that we could discuss sort of the climate of sports and the coming back of sports after this pandemic. And there's rumblings going on, there's talks going on that things are moving along, and that we're headed in a positive direction. I did see an unfortunate article that Brown University, which is an Ivy League university, is having to cut 11 of its varsity sports just because, it can't sustain them, and that's just really sad to hear. Updates out of my college, because of course I go to a major SEC college. You can probably get the hints in the pictures behind me. But the word coming out of my college is that football specifically is what I know is planning to resume in the fall, and this is approved by the governor of Texas, and it's going to resume. At what capacity, I don't know. We're being told that we may be able to only attend some games not. I don't know if that's going to be a lottery system. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be handled by the school and faculty. I don't really know. We're also being told that the games that you will be able to attend, the capacity is going to be limited. It could be as low as 25% maximum capacity, which would be, again, are we doing another lottery system for that? That's going to be really tough. And then I've also heard rumblings that the faculty wants to check everyone's temperature at the gate of the stadium, which 25% of Kyle Field capacity. If you don't know, Kyle Field is the stadium for Texas A&M. Kyle Field's max capacity is around 203, maybe even to 106,000. And so 25% of that is roughly 25, 26, 27,000. So checking 27,000 temperatures, you better get there early, because that's going to really, really slow the lines down, and it's going to be a big hassle. But if it's what they feel like they have to do, who am I to really stand against that? So yeah, that's pretty much the rumblings that I'm getting outside of my college. I'm hearing reports that the NBA had a meeting yesterday or day before with the Board of Governors and some of the ownership for certain teams, and a formal vote was not taken in terms of bringing the league back or not. If I had to make a guess, I would think that the NBA is going to go straight into the playoffs, because if you think about it, the playoffs, let's see, this probably would have been the last week for the regular season. The playoffs would have almost started, and then the playoffs are done by, midsummer, and then the new season starts in October. So these guys, if they start the playoffs, next few weeks, they're not going to have an off season. That's what I want to know, how this is going to go. And the teams that aren't in the playoffs, they're just not going to have to report like they're already in their off season, or nobody knows. And also, I've heard rumblings that they may do the entire a bracketed non-conference playoff format. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see. But a lot of the top players like LeBron James, Chris Paul, these guys have said that they really want to play. Some players are very hesitant about it. Players with certain pre-existing conditions, like Larry Nance, I forget what he has, but saying that maybe he doesn't want to come back and he doesn't feel comfortable yet. So it's going to be very, very interesting. The other thing I'm hearing about the NBA is that they may use Disney Sports Complex in Orlando, the ESPN Wide World of Sports, to bring back their games. The stadium there is not a very big capacity, if they will let fans at all, and it's a good complex to put on sporting events. So that will be very, very interesting to see. That's pretty much as far as the NBA goes. I'm hearing out of. I'm not really hearing a lot out of the NFL. I don't really know what's going to go on with that. I have a fantasy football draft in a little while, so I kind of know what's going to go on there. And I'm thinking this was going to be Drew Brees' last season, so hopefully we get to see that. That'd be really disappointing if the NFL season was canceled, but I think the NFL will be able to come back. UFC, I've been watching some UFC fighting, and that's a really, really weird thing to see with no fans. I mean, it's just guys fighting and no fans in the audience, and Joe Rogan is doing post-fight interviews and saying, everyone, it's whoever, give them but there's no one there. It's really confusing, and it's just a really, really wild thing to see fighting with no fans. Else on the UFC front, I know Dana White was working on his Fight Island idea, which is essentially that he would buy a tropical island, and it would be just an island to have fights on. It would have hotels and such, and an arena to have fights. I think that sounds crazy. It sounds like super futuristic and really interesting. And my knowledge is that he has bought an island, and he's saying that it has hotels and an arena, but he's keeping this very, very, very under wraps. So that will be very interesting to see. And I've heard different things. I've heard that they believe that Conor McGregor may come back and headline the first card on that Fight Island, maybe fighting Nate Diaz again. That would be a good fight. That would be the third time they fought. They've each split one. And I think that would be a very, very interesting and good fight to watch Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor fight again. I think that would be very, very cool. Okay, so just moving on to our next topic. That about does it for sports. Let's go ahead and move on to, I want to talk really quickly. I want to recap kind of my ongoing workout journey and such. So Monday, June 1st, I'm turning 21, and I've really locked in that I want to make a fitness goal for myself. I want to start working really hard. I kind of broke the goals for myself for this year into quarters. Now, they were kind of wrecked a little bit. Everybody's goal, everything was wrecked because of this, this virus is horrible. But I kind of had set my goals for this year into quarters. So the first quarter, I wanted to set up and establish the podcast. And I feel like I've done that. I feel like I've set up and established the podcast, and we're back online live. We're back where I want it, and I'm really excited for that. And look what it's done to me. I don't have a haircut. I need a haircut bad. But the quarter two fitness goal for me to start was going to be to start a sustained and dedicated fitness journey for myself. Now, I know we had Operation 165 on my personal channel, and that kind of waned because of this whole quarantine thing. There's no gyms. It took a hit on, I'm sure, all of us. But I really made it a goal for myself to begin a fitness journey. And I'd like to start it this Tuesday after my birthday, and I'll give you guys weekly updates on that. I have a very close relative who's very into the fitness community, and he's sort of coaching me along, kind of giving me some plans and some ideas to kind of motivate myself and get me going, some workout ideas that can be worked with in an apartment setting. And maybe one day we'll have him as a guest on the podcast. He would be a very good guest, and maybe one day we can make that happen. We can discuss the journey as we go along. But I'll just give you guys some things that I'm using. So the workouts probably are going to be certain bodyweight exercises to start. The dieting, I'm trying the kind of the all around 40-30-30. 40 protein, 30 carb, 30 fat, and that's going to help with the losing fat. That's why the protein is the highest. And then I'm using the Lose It app, if you guys are familiar with that. It's not a sponsor, but I'm using the Lose It app to go ahead and track all of my calories and to track my progress along as I go. So that is basically my fitness journey. I plan to start Tuesday. I'll start working out, get really on my diet, and I'll try to give you guys a week-to-week update on my progress on that front, and so you guys can feel like you're a part of that. And I encourage you, if my story encourages you and I really get after it, I encourage you to get after it too, and really get after fitness and being healthy. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to our final topic of the day, which has to do with gaming, and it has to do with Battle Royale, specifically the Battle Royale format of gaming. So, a few years ago, I would say that, just as a personal example, my mom, who's been on this podcast, and other family members, such as my grandmother, one of my aunts, the gaming that they did was to the extent of little app games to their iPads, not shooters, not anything of that nature at all. Little word games, nothing, And all of a sudden, a few years ago, Fortnite comes along. Okay, which, if you don't know what Fortnite is, I don't know what cave you're living in, but Fortnite is a shooter, in its essence, a third-person shooter, which I could have never in a million years seen my mom or my grandmother or my aunt playing a third-person shooter. And it's set in the Battle Royale format. And I feel like this game, Fortnite, really, really, really launched the popularity of Battle Royale. Now, if you don't know what Battle Royale is, I'll explain it to you. So what Battle Royale is it's essentially a format of gaming where you have a circle, a large circle on a large map. The circle doesn't cover the entire map, but the first circle covers a large part of the map. And eventually, after a certain time, a storm will close to that circle, forcing the players, which in Fortnite it's 100 players, and in Warzone, which is a newer Battle Royale, Call of Duty's Battle Royale, it's 150 players. But this storm closes to this circle, and it forces the players in. And with time and time and time, there are new circles, and each circle gets smaller and smaller until less and less players are, and one player is left standing, and that player wins. They win. They're the winner of the Battle Royale, that game. And these games go on and on and on. You can play solo. You can play as a 2-person team, a 4-person team, 3-person team. It all depends. There's tons of different game modes. But Fortnite really launched the popularity of the Battle Royale gaming format. And I'm still, for the life of me, trying to figure out what about that game attracted so many people. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't a fun game. It was fun for me. I enjoyed it. There was the building aspect. But my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt still play it to this day, and they play it together. They play it every day. I know it's got to be somewhat of a bonding thing, but what about that game just makes people come together and play it? I don't understand. I mean, it's a shooter. I could never picture them playing a shooter. And from what I can take from just hearing them talk about it is they're very into the challenge aspect. So in Fortnite and in Warzone, I know, because that's the main battle royales that I've played, there's a battle pass you buy, and you complete certain challenges to unlock different things on your battle pass. And they sort of love the task making of it and doing the tasks. So I don't know so much if it's that they like the Battle Royale format or they like the task building format, but they're so into it. And Battle Royale gaming as a whole has become so popular since Fortnite. I mean, even Call of Duty, who has been a sole multiplayer campaign co-op game builder, saw the opportunity, and they themselves have designed their own Battle Royale called Warzone, which is more similar to a PUBG than a Fortnite, I would say. Which PlayerUnknown's Battleground is another a Battle Royale format, excuse me. And but the genre is so popular right now. So many Battle Royales out there: Apex, PUBG, Fortnite, Warzone. There's so many of these Battle Royales out there that people are playing, and they're just so popular. And I think it's the competitive aspect that you can play as a team. That's really fun to do, and just the movement and the looting. It's a fun. It's a take on an MMO, but just a little more competitive and fast paced. I kind of think is what it is, and I think that's kind of what's driving it to be so popular. But man, Battle Royale is just such a big thing. I really wanted to talk about that a little bit and talk about kind of what makes Battle Royale so popular. And if you have any opinions on that, please leave it in the comments below the video. I'd really appreciate it. You can leave them right down here in the comment section. Well, okay, that's all our topics for today. I'm so glad to be back in the Lone Star Cajun podcast studio, my $4 million studio, and I'm glad that it is absolved of coronavirus. I'm so glad to be back. I'm glad I can share my fitness journey with you. Please expect updates on that. I'm still working on getting more guests for the podcast. I know you guys really, really enjoy when a guest comes on based on the viewership. I hope you guys would follow us on Instagram and Twitter. This next week for the next podcast, we're going to be restarting our Twitter polls. So at some point during the middle of the week, I'm going to launch a Twitter poll, and that'll be between several topics that'll be discussed on the next podcast. You guys will go to Twitter, vote on that poll, and whatever topic wins will be featured as a topic on next week's podcast. So I know this one is going to be rather short, but it's our first one back in studio. We're just getting everything back live and together. I'm going to be back next week with some fresh and great content. I'm really excited to have you guys, and as always, this is the Lone Star Cajun Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great week.